Okay, next video. So, so we did this canoe trip. I think we started pretty early in the morning, and I ate a bunch of these mushrooms. They're not nearly as strong as American ones, though. They're really thin, and the caps are really small, like as big as your fingernail. And you can eat a whole bunch of them, and they're like a tenth as strong as the ones in America. But you still trip. I was still tripping. And so we canoed, and this English kid I was with wasn't very athletic. He was just kind of canoeing. He didn't really understand that you have to dig in if you want to get anywhere, but it didn't matter because I was doing it. And it got kind of windy, and at one point I let him do it, but he was totally useless because like we needed one person to pole and another person to actually canoe because it was so windy, and we were kind of like in a shallow part of the lake. But we ended up making it to the isthmus that way. It was so it'd be like halfway around, but it wasn't halfway. It was like a lot less than half. It was like 100 miles around. The first day was like 40 miles, and the second day was 60 miles. And we got to the edge, and we didn't know what to do from that point because we couldn't carry the boat to the other end because it was so heavy. And he got kind of frustrated, and so I told him, okay, you can just go ahead and go back, take the bus back. I'll deal with this myself. So he left, and then I found these Indonesian guys, like 6 of them, to come with their pickup and hoist that thing on the back of their pickup and take it to the other end of it. And I paid somebody else to let me put it like in their backyard or something. And then I went to I ran down to the hot springs and stayed at the hot springs hotel and soaked for a little bit and slept. And then I got up at like 6 o'clock the next morning and ran back to my canoe and got in it and paddled. And I think I brought a bunch of water with me, a couple of water bottles with me, and I had a big breakfast and maybe brought extra food for lunch and stuff, and I paddled my brains out. And I started at 6 in the morning, and I went around, and then I headed north again, and it got really windy, and like the waves got really big and were kind of like splashing into the boat. And it was really difficult to paddle this thing because this thing weighed so much, and there was no, rudder on the bottom of the boat. Like I would paddle, I'd have to do like 6 paddles, I think it was. At least 6. I had to count them because I had to be very calculated to keep the thing going in the direction I needed to go. I'd do 6 and it would go, so it would be turning like this, 6, 6, 6, 6, and then it'd get literally to 45 degrees. I'm not exaggerating. And then I'd paddle this side, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, and then I'd start to paddle on this side before it even got straight again. And the momentum of it just kept it going. And I'd keep paddling it until I got to 45 degrees, and it would go back, and then I'd start paddling over here. And I just had it timed, so the boat was doing like this the entire time. But it was still kind of going by pretty fast because it could still move forward, even though it was sideways because it didn't have a rudder on it. And it got dark, and then I saw the light of where I was at, and I just kept trudging it. But like I didn't bring enough food or something, so my stomach shriveled up. I guess because my stomach was totally flexed the whole time from the paddling, that it squeezed my stomach and all of my acid went up into my throat, and my throat was burning hot fire. It was the most painful experience you could possibly imagine. There's nothing more painful than that. But I had to, and even if I drank water, it didn't really do anything, and I think I ran out of water too. Anyways, that happened for hours, and I think I finally made it back to the town I started at like 11:30 at night. And I went to my hotel, and the person who rented me the boat was there, wondering where I was. And I brought the boat because I think I brought it back I was supposed to come back that day, but yeah, I left it there and where I got it at the guy's backyard, and went back to my hotel and hung out for a couple of days. And he never came back, like me, asking me, hey, what are you doing? Coming back late. But yeah, and then I was there like another couple of days or something, and then I rode my bike back, continuing to the place where you take the boat to Nias, so the western side of Sumatra. And I had a really interesting experience. I had weed that I bought, a little bit of weed that I bought there. And so I'd ride, and then I would get off the road and smoke, and then ride some more. Bike touring and smoking weed is amazing, especially if you have music. And I think I did have music. So listen to music, smoking weed, bike touring, and then you get off the road and smoke. It's awesome because you get to hang out in the woods and get all high in nature, and then get back on your road. But I had to be really careful because the road's really narrow, and Indonesian drivers are really bad, and they don't give you any room. So I had a mirror on the side of my bike, and I looked. I was always looking at every single car, and I knew exactly where they were. And I would actually get off the road because some of them were going to hit me. Like if I hadn't have gotten off the road, I would have been hit and killed. So you have to be on your toes completely. But I got to the top of one pass, and it was a big downhill. And I got off the road, I think to have like a smoke break or something, lunch break, and it started to rain. And I was in my t-shirt and my shorts. And the rain came down, and the rain was cold, and I was freezing, shivering. But instead of putting on a rain jacket, all I had to do was get on my bike, and then I rode down the mountain. And the air temperature, because I was right on the equator, warmed me up. So I was perfectly warm in a rainstorm, riding downhill, when I was freezing if I was just staying still. It was like opposite from in Colorado. It was pretty cool. And then I rode down a beautiful downhill into this little town where the boat went off, and rode a boat like 4 hours, I think, to the island of Nias, and was on the northern end of it and stayed there for a day, and took these two kids to this movie. I think two kids who worked at my hotel or something, to a movie theater, and they had an Indonesian movie. Indonesia is one of the only countries where they don't play American movies. Indonesia and Malaysia were the only two countries. And Malaysia was interesting because they all speak English there, yet they all have Chinese movies. Malaysia is kind of a cosmopolitan place. You have the Chinese who control everything, and then the Indians, and like maybe a few of the natives. But we were in this movie theater watching some weird Indonesian movie, and then for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, in the middle of the movie, cut to this porno of these people having sex in a bathtub. And then it went back to the original movie, and nobody said anything. I guess that was part of the culture or something. I don't know. Or they just didn't care. It was really weird. But the movie was only like $1 or something. And then I rode my bike all the way down to the south side of Nias where the surfing is. And I got a room there. I'm on my own little bungalow right on the edge of the beach, and surfed for a month. It took me like a week and a half to finally learn how to stand up, because I actually bought a surfboard, or rented a surfboard the whole time. And the one that I got was too small. It wasn't one of these big ones that are easy to learn on. But I learned how to stand up on it. And then I actually watched people, and I timed with my stopwatch. And it was 35 seconds that this wave carried you. So it was really cool. Big wave that I would ride for 35 seconds. At one point, I actually rode a wave with this other guy. We were on the same wave, riding it for like the whole time. And then it kind of got, some different waves came in, and I was riding some other waves, which were really big. But you could only surf for a couple seconds. But when you were surfing, the wave was so big that you were actually skipping off the water. It was like, it was really cool. But Nias is amazing because they still had the native towns there with the main street. You'd have these little huts lining this big, really wide main street that's cobbled. And in the middle, there's this big stone, like, tower pile of rocks that's maybe 6 feet high, and then a little stone about this high and the kids would run up to it and jump over the stone and jump over it for training, because they were all headhunters until 100 years ago. Their sport was to go to the next village and chop each other's heads off. And you could kind of tell from the natives there that were living there were still really aggressive and generally not very nice, actually. I would never go back there. But I thought I probably could have jumped over the stone, but I didn't want to risk it and hurt myself, so I didn't do it. Yeah, I mean, the natives there they were really outgoing, but they were just too aggressive. It wasn't, not the kind of people I wanted to hang out with. But then there was another town up on the top of a hill that was pretty, and they had like the chief's house, which was really big. In Indonesia, on those islands, they had these houses that were like big A-frames, like this, and it was like 2 stories, and very pretty. And walking around the town, it was fun. The people were they're really full of energy. Indonesians and Moroccans and Brazilians are really full of energy, and especially Indonesians. I remember riding my bike down, and I went past a village and I looked at all of them. There was like 30 of them, or 100 villagers, all stopped in their tracks and stared at me. And so I go, hey, and the whole village goes, hey, just roaring. And, but I was kind of like their friend. I was these Indonesian kids' friends there, and it got really annoying because they were always like yelling at me and running after me, and like they didn't know when to stop. Kind of got kind of annoying. But yeah, so I stayed at, that's the video, I guess I'll have to continue.